Today marks a milestone. This is episode 50, and a big thank you to all our listeners who've been with us so far. It also marks a new chapter with a new name, Routine is Revenue, bringing you sharper conversations for your business success. To celebrate, I'm running a private draw. Listen to this episode today, on 4th of February. Take a screenshot and send it to me. Then please share this episode with business owners who need it. The prize? 3 people will receive a place on my one-to-one program, Routine is Power, because a healthier you makes a wealthier you. Most business owners are working hard enough, yet they are struggling because they don't realize their personal operating system is under pressure. If you are building a business or career, but feel like you are carrying everything alone, this conversation is for you. Today's topic is prioritization clarity. It's how you utilize your time best. It highlights why effort is not the issue. I'm Ildiko Seely, leader of the Routine Revolution, and I'm joined today by Toni Eastwood OBE. She's a business leader and a strategist who rebuilt her confidence and direction after years of overcompensating through achievement. Together, we are going to explore how self-trust, clarity, and intentional choices change the way you use your time. Certainly not everybody, but high achievers, business people, entrepreneurs tend to look confident on the outside, while privately, potentially they are all battling self-doubt and overwhelm on the inside. So Toni, do you think that most people struggle with prioritization because they just do not actually trust themselves to choose what matters?
That's such a good question. And I see all the time entrepreneurs, and certainly within my world and my clients, is that they're struggling with what to do because they're trying to do too much, or they're just not confident, or there's that lack of self-belief, that the fears and doubts are just holding them back. So they find it really hard to know what to do. And I've struggled with that myself. I come in my office and I sit and I literally staring at the screen thinking, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do first. And if I do know what to do, I'm like, second guessing myself. Should I be doing this? How should I do it? And, so I think that's like probably the number one thing that holds business owners and entrepreneurs back, for sure.
That in itself is actually quite interesting, that prioritization and the lack of prioritization or understanding what needs to be done first can be due to so many different things. Like you mentioned, a number of things. So for me, it tends to be, I suppose I just go back to my comfort zone and get on with stuff that I enjoy doing and I love doing. And then you mentioned that some people could be not that strong with prioritization because they lack the confidence of doing. But then again, is it that we don't do the thing that would move the needle forward because we're not confident with that yet?
What people tend to do is they think, well, I'm not confident yet, so how do I become confident? So we go away and maybe we'll think, oh, we'll do another course, or we'll watch someone else, and then we get drawn into that doom scrolling and looking at other people, that comparison, and then convincing ourselves we're still not good enough. And the number one thing that we need to do to be confident is to get into action. And that for me, what it's all about is like, if you don't do anything to build your confidence or to build your expertise, then you're never going to be confident. It's a bit like doing a podcast. I don't know about you, Ildiko. I spent ages doing stupid things like, I need a sign in the background. I need a plant. I need a decent microphone. I need to go on a course. I need to do all these things. And it took me like 2 years procrastinating, really, before I actually did anything. And, the thing is, your first time or first go round at anything, when you go back, you might cringe, you might worry. But if you don't do it, then you're never going to get confident. It's that 10,000 hours thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so true. I tell you what, your little story about the starting of the podcast and procrastinating for 2 years, that's exactly my story about my health routine. For two and a half years, I wasn't doing any exercise, nothing. And all I kept doing was just saying, I need to introduce exercise in my life. And it just became like a daily mantra until eventually I had a kind of kick up the backside and simply got up 10 minutes earlier and started doing a little 7-minute exercise routine. And that started off this whole sort of big snowball of building an amazing health routine, which now propels me in my business. So before the work you are doing today, it seems like that you spent decades collecting qualifications, maybe, just like the best of us, searching for confidence, as we mentioned, indeed. So when you look back at those years of constant learning and self-investment, what were you really trying to fix at the time?
I was trying to fix me and the demons. You know, my kind of really real backstory is when I was very young, from the age of 5 to 15, I was really badly bullied at school by one particular ringleader, but then everyone else around her. And to the point I kind of withdrew. And so that really, when I first started my career, I didn't want to speak out. I would hide. I couldn't even speak about myself. I couldn't even say to my boss, actually, I am ambitious. This is what I want to do. I really want to be successful. That thing about being successful was really there for me, really deep. But I always was worried about voicing it. I knew if I spoke about it, I would cry. It was so deep and so emotional. So I actually stopped myself.
Sounds like it was almost like a miracle that you got a job. Like going for an interview sounds like it must have been really painful for you.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I got my first ever kind of real job from a friend. I was at college. I was doing sport and health and fitness. So I have got that routine. A friend of mine was working in a benefit office and she said to me, we're looking for some people to come in the summer. Would you be able to do it? And I was like, oh yeah. And so I did it. I was absolutely fine because I didn't really need to have an interview. But then, you know, as we were, you know, building and they asked me to stay on, it was kind of a fluke that I got there. But then I realized that I wanted more. I was loving it. I could see lots of opportunity, but I was too scared to say anything. So yeah, that whole lack of confidence ran with me till I was about 23, 24. And then I thought, well, everyone around me, all my bosses had MBAs. So I was like, right, I need to get an MBA. So I went on this 6-year journey of getting an MBA, going to university 2 nights a week, literally spending hours. And then I got that and I still didn't feel successful. And then I thought, right, loads of people have got coaching qualifications and do NLP. I'm going to go and do that. I did that and I passed everything with like really flying colours. But every single time I still didn't feel successful. So I went and found another thing until I was 44, Ildiko. It took me 44 to realise that another qualification wasn't going to make me confident, wasn't going to get rid of the demons that were in my head about not feeling good enough, that self-doubt and all of that. So I kind of went on a whole nother journey of researching what makes successful people successful. And out of that, and I've spent the rest of my time, and I'm now 58, actually still doing that every day, researching what do people do? How do they do it? Finding the patterns. And then that's what I kind of coach and mentor the business owners I work with is what are those patterns? And so some of those are about prioritising.
Indeed. I was about to lead into that you obviously now help founders to build heart-led businesses and you help them with their structure and to build that freedom that we all chase.
Yes.
So today, how do you personally decide what deserves your time and what no longer gets placed in your day?
I'm really quite rigid on this, and it took me a long time, but you know, it is kind of the founding part of my model is like beginning with the end in mind. So whether that's a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal, a 3-year goal, or our goals for this year or even this week is what is it that we are actually trying to achieve or that we want to achieve. So getting that clarity is really, really important because that and then enables us to say, really importantly, no to the things that are going to get in the way of that. and yes to the things that we think are going to move the needle towards where we're trying to go to.
Why is it? Or I don't know. I don't think it's just me, but I personally find it incredibly difficult to pinpoint that even 3, never mind 5 and 10-year goals, apart from I want to travel the world, and it's like a bit of almost like a throwaway remark. I want to spend time with my
Yeah.
husband. Who doesn't? Well, I do. But
Sometimes.
you know what I mean? And it's like, how on earth do you pinpoint something 10 years in the future when you don't, well, okay, we have sort of in our second half of our lives, we hope to live on for long, but nonetheless, we are still in the later stage of our lives.
Yeah.
I personally find it incredibly difficult. So what kind of little techniques do you use to assist people? Or do you find that your clients share this, that they find it difficult to pinpoint what to plan for in 3, 5, and 10 years?
Yeah. I think a lot of people do. So my starting point with that is like kind of just getting people to think a little bit differently. So thinking about, if you were to have the best day of your life, what would that day look like, feel like? Who would you be with? What sort of work might you be doing? What sort of clients might you be working with? What would you be doing in your life? A lot of my clients are small business owners. Our business is our life is our business. If you're really doing something you love, and at a certain age, you want to be really doing something you love. Because otherwise, what is it all about, really? So it's like, but what does that look like? Because we don't really spend time and stop and think, what does great look like for me? So whether that is a year or 2 years or 3 or 5 or whatever time period we want, it's like, what is it you want to create? What do you really want in your life? And asking questions like, if you had, and they're kind of like incisive questions and questions that get you to just think a little bit differently. Like, if you had all the time and money in the world, what would you be doing? And then the answer to that question is like, well, okay, why are you doing what you're doing now then? Because that's a lie.
Indeed, one of the most powerful questions that anyone can ask at any age, really, especially youngsters, I suppose, because for them, at like 20, 25, even 35 is so far away, never mind in their 40s or 50s. But the question I think that's so important is, if money was no issue, what would you be doing?
Yeah.
So then if that's the dream, why are you slaving away wherever you're slaving away?
Yeah. And also another question I ask is, what would you do even if you might fail?
But you ask this to of anyone at any age, or youngsters, or?
To be honest, I wished I'd have done some of this work a lot sooner, because then I think you would have gone on. I think I would have taken a different path. I kind of just flip-flopped around because I didn't really have a structure or a way of being able to think about or articulate what it is that I'd really like to be doing. Because once you've got that, you can then sort of come back. It's called a goal setting for today. You can then come back to now and then say, right, okay, what are the little steps that I could start taking that actually will move me in that direction? What are the 2 or 3 things I could really work on that's going to move me towards that?
What I wanted to sort of just loop back to for a moment is what you said about you wish you studied this or researched this earlier. Now, here I am, so literally approaching 52 in a couple of months, and constantly, since I've been in business, especially since building my own business, it's constantly sort of pushing at me like, I wish someone told me this 20, 30 years ago. But what I keep coming back to is that I had to live through all of my life experiences, and I had to mature into that moment, into that position, to be able to do it, to be able to fully understand it. Like, I had a conversation yesterday morning with someone and he said, oh, you've got to do X, Y, Z. That was a bit of advice I heard 4 years ago when I first got into business. But only just now am I getting to that stage where I've learned enough and done enough to really fully understand the importance of that particular advice. It's interesting if you think that, oh, I wish someone told me this, or I wish I did this so much longer ago. But were you ready for it? You clearly weren't.
Yeah, and I mean, there's that saying, isn't there? When the student is ready, the teacher will come. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, you can hear things over and over again. And I see it with clients. You know, we're talking, we will have a conversation. They're paying a lot of money, and they still don't do what we kind of agree is the best thing for them to do.
Because
And
they're
I'm
not
like,
quite
boy,
mature and ready for it yet.
if we all look at where we are now, all of the things we've been through have shaped us, and of course those pivotal moments, and if we hadn't have had them, then we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now, whether we loved it or we hated it, or those are those pivotal moments. So I think there is a lot to be said to that, but I also think that there is well-known structures and processes that actually, even if we weren't quite ready, if we went through them, it does start to build the confidence if you use those systems and those processes. That boring and mundane stuff actually does compound, and it means that we get closer to our goals sooner.
If you are listening to this thinking this is exactly where I get stuck, that's not accidental. This is the work I do privately with business owners who want sustainable performance without it costing them their health. If it resonates, you will find the link in the show notes. So to talk about going from reaction to direction in our work, you have a model called Aspire.
Yes.
And I understand that it came from years of research into what makes people successful, as you mentioned already.
Yeah.
So what is the first shift that someone has to make if they don't want to stop reacting to demand and start directing their time intentionally?
Yeah, well, it's the two of the letters within the Aspire model are the purpose and identity, so the P and the I. So although it's Aspire, the P and the I for me is where we start. So it's purpose, like what is it that you want to do, you want to create, where do you want to be, what does that look and feel like for you? And then identity. Because the other thing that really stops us is we're not quite believing that we can step into the identity of who we want to be. And that is that confidence thing. So I do this kind of fun exercise with, like, who is it you want to show up as? Who do you want to be? And there's a big piece of research around that. What we tend to do as humans is that we base our behavior on our feelings. So how do I feel today? Not very confident, or I don't actually feel very energetic, or I don't feel very well. And so we base what we do on our feelings, and that our continued beingness, what we do, our behaviors form your identity. So what we want to do is flip that model on its head and go, who do we want to be? What's the behaviors? And guess what? Doesn't matter how you feel then.
Oh my goodness, this literally is exactly, fitting into the temple model that I work from with my clients.
Yeah.
And the sort of baseline of it is, apart from the time utilization that you then use for work as well, but then the health pillars that you look after every single area of your health. You do something, one or two little things every single day, especially in the morning. And what I refer to is doing exercise in the morning and taking a cold shower after it energizes me every single morning. It literally just fills me up, like charges me up, as if I just stuck my hand in the wall plug. And then meditate, which refills my cup, because I sort of, reinforce in myself that what I'm doing is amazing. And I know that it is, because I help people and they give me feedback, and it's fabulous. And I'm sure that you share that as well, because you must be receiving excellent feedback from your clients, because this framework that you're talking about is fantastic. And so if you make the effort to charge yourself up and refill your cup every single morning, then you can actually write your own story. You can paint your own destiny, can't you?
100%. So that identity work I do very similar is so I have 3 areas: energy, work, and love. So who do we want to be in energy? So my energy, and I call it the superhero version, is the Zen warrior goddess. So
I love that.
You say, what does she do? Well, she gets up in the morning, she does her HIIT workout, She does her 10,000 steps a day. She gets her 8 hours sleep. So they're all behaviors, and they're all things that I can tick off every day. Go, did I do it? Did I not do it? And then in work, my superhero version of me is the transformational philosopher in chief.
Oh,
And for me, that is about, well, my behaviors are, so I time block. I have behaviors that I work around, like sales and marketing. Every day I do research, and I think about, well, how can that philosophical thing is the philosopher these days is a librarian of stuff. Well, in the old days, if you go back to the ancient Greeks and Romans, the philosophers learned, discussed, and helped other people with like a model or a solution or a tool. So that's like, okay, I'm the modern day version of that. I'm not a librarian anymore.
brilliant.
I was a librarian when I was collecting qualifications. I was collecting it all, but I wasn't actually using it in my work and helping other people with it. And then my real fun one is my love, which is I am the world's best wife. Don't tell my husband that because he would laugh at you. But I have to work at that. We all love what we do. And if you're doing what you love, then you probably want to do it all the time, which
Yes.
means that some of my other relationships suffer if I don't work at them. So, I forget my goddaughter's birthday. I forget to send my mum a birthday card unless I have a system and a process and I'm really regimented around that, so that I remember those things that, are important to me. But you know what? I really love what I do. So I get all consumed if I'm not careful. So, my behaviors around the world's best wife are I'm present between 8 and 10 at night. I'm present when we go out on a Saturday and Sunday. I've not got my face in my mobile doing posts for social media, because my love behavior is I'm with you. Even if you're on social media, I'm going to be with you and present.
Because that's your value. That's your standard.
Yeah.
Fortunately, my husband wouldn't laugh if I said I was the best wife, because he thinks so too. That's fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. So to kind of translate the prioritization into real life for our listeners, some of the listeners can say that maybe they are busy all day, and at the end of the day or the week, they still feel like they're completely falling behind, kind of like where we started from. So what is one really simple prioritization habit someone can introduce to their week or even just their day that immediately reduces that friction that they might be experiencing?
Yeah, well, for me, it's about that clarity on what your goal is, and having that one wildly important goal. Because I think that what we all tend to do is try and do too much. We try and serve too many clients. We try and have too many offers. We try and do, we all try and do too much in one day. My sort of number one thing is, what's that wildly important goal, which is a lag measure? If my goal for the year is X, then I don't know until I get to the end of the year whether I've achieved it or not. It's the lead measure. So what are the 2 or 3 things that you commit to daily and block out time for daily that are going to move the needle towards your goal? Because anything else you're doing that is not moving you towards your goal, then you shouldn't be doing it.
So easy to say that, and then it's so hard to do.
I know, and it's because we're human. Because we all, and especially if we're a little bit entrepreneurial, or in these days if we're a bit more ADHD or ADD, is we always see these other shiny things. It is finding a way to hold yourself accountable and keep the score on. Here's the 3 things that I'm going to do every single day without fail. And I'm going to actually tick them off at the end of the day, or measure it at the end of the week, or find an accountability partner, or work with a coach or mentor. What way are you going to try and hold yourself accountable? Because I think that's the thing that's missing, is accountability.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Especially if we're working on our own.
And funny you mentioned neurodiversity. That literally is my next question. Because in my experience, here we are at episode 50. Quite a few of my guests, we are all in midlife, because up till now the podcast was called New Business in Later Life. So I spoke to people who started a new business in a later stage of their life. we are now concentrating a lot more on routine to bring us revenue. But a lot of them said, and we discussed it, that we either self-diagnosed or properly officially diagnosed with either ADHD or autistic tendencies or anything in between on that spectrum, which is quite interesting. So people kind of, on one hand, come to terms with it like, I always knew that I wasn't a bad person, or whatever person people labeled them, and kind of just at peace with ourselves. Obviously, then doing a routine can become a little bit more difficult for those people. So what is the first routine you would suggest to someone whose mind feels busy or scattered or overloaded? You know how we all feel, in order to be able to do these routines when they struggle with ADHD or autism or tendencies of those kind?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I think probably 8 out of 10 of my clients have been diagnosed, self-diagnosed. And when I read and see everything, I'm like, I know I've always struggled with those things. But I also think it's a spectrum, which means we're all on it somewhere,
Absolutely.
one thing degree or another. But so I think it's about knowing ourselves. But the one thing for me that works time and time again, it sort of revolutionizes your day, is time blocking. Is actually saying, like, what are the 2 or 3 things that I really need to do every day? And from today, I am actually going to block out that time forever in my diary. So my time blocks are in my diary forever. You know, I've not done it for the next week. It's like every day is in my diary. No one can get in my diary if I send out a calendar link during those times. And only I can decide whether or not I do something else in that session. And so for me, unless it's, I don't know, a podcast guest or a guest appearance or a client saying I really need that spot, I would not move that spot.
Do you not find that you kind of become blind to it? Because I try to do that, to actually literally plot it into my calendar, because my Google calendar is full of colors, which I
Yeah,
quite like, because I can literally see at a glance what's coming up, what
yeah,
kind of appointment
yeah.
is coming up. And
Mine
that's
are
very helpful
colours as
for me. So that helps with my autistic tendencies.
yeah.
But what I found over a number of weeks was just simply looking at all those things in the calendar, I just became blind to it and didn't pay any attention, and then ended up even more scattered. But then again, as we probably mentioned, we are all
I think it's
different.
about knowing yourself well enough. So this comes down to like the accountability, doesn't it? Is because
Right.
if you know, so I know if I follow that and I do all my other, health and energy routines, I know if I do those every day, I have better good days than I had before, and I have better bad days than I had before. And I know when I drop those, which of course I do, I'm human, I'm not perfect, no one's going to be perfect. I know when I drop those balls, my days start getting worse. And even my good days aren't that good. And I see that I'm not hitting my targets. Sales start to disappear. The pipeline's gone dry. And I'm like, what's going on? It's all going wrong. And
And
then
you
I
can
stand back and see I'm not doing it.
probably go back and find the day when it
Yeah,
started to slip down the
yeah,
slope, and here's the consequence. But yeah, I think the two important things, that one, indeed, we don't have to be rigid, but we need to keep an eye on it, definitely. And we need to manage it, how we manage our time, isn't it? How we
yeah,
utilize our time, because we can't actually manage the time, but utilize it well and make sure that we have those structures in place. Because the other thing
yeah,
is that maybe that sort of came to mind, that especially when we struggle with either autistic or ADHD tendencies, especially ADHD, I suppose, when you can't really keep to rigid things because the mind doesn't work that way. But as long as we have, let's say, 3 particular things assigned to the day, and then we can plot it in, and then as long as we keep to it, whether it's at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock or even 8
yeah.
o'clock at night, it doesn't matter, as long as by the end of the day those 3 particular things get done, then it's a success.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know the work of a guy called Cal Newport, who's got a book called Deep Work. That was really what got me into this, because what he talks about is there's different ways of, time blocking or doing deep work, which is a rare thing because we all flit about and there are so many things that can get in our way. There's so many things that are chucked at us on a daily basis through social media, screens, and, all sorts of things, that there are lots of ways that we can get distracted. So that's part of the issue. And then also, so what he talks about is instead of doing lots of different things, which is quite shallow work, which means we never do our best work, is finding those like 90-minute slots, 2 or 3 a day of those, where we're not necessarily saying I'm going to do the same thing every day, but like one of my 90-minute slots is marketing and sales. I just know that's my slot for marketing and sales, and I might do something different each day around marketing and sales. So it's not so rigid.
I see what you mean.
But
Yeah. Give it a framework and then.
Yeah. So I've just got these 3 slots and I work in them, but I do what I think is important to move the needle. So every day, without fail, I just check in with my vision, my goal for that year. And then I go, right, okay, so what's important in this time slot this morning that I work on? And you can only work on one thing. So I call it win. What's important now? So
that's really good. That's a brilliant acronym. Yeah, win. Let's win this session. What's important right now?
Yeah. So that enables you to maybe, and I try and encourage everyone to get rid of to-do lists, because all they do is weigh us down, and because you never get to the end of them. So I have big chunks of, okay, I've got marketing and sales, I've got meeting and delivering with clients, and then I've got creation. What am I working on? Am I creating, next week's session for a masterclass I'm running, or, so those 3 slots are what are in my diary all the time, but I'm not always working on the same thing. And then I've got a plan for the year of, when a launch is coming, or when I'm working with a certain client on a certain product or service. So if I get too rigid around it, I get bored, and then you've got no flexibility. And if we do find that difficult, then we don't want to be so constrained. But equally, I think without some parameters, you don't focus on any of the right things, and then we never get where we want to get to.
Absolutely. So to wrap the conversation up, we started with setting the elusive target for 10 years' time. And ever so often people just want freedom, and they need to sort of somehow put it into words what their freedom means to them. Yet they kind of find their diaries just completely full, and they tell a different story. Like probably, as I mentioned, even the colors were overwhelming. So what uncomfortable truth do people have to accept if they genuinely want to control what they do with their time?
Well, you are where you are today as a result of what you've been doing or haven't been doing. So if you're not getting to where you want to get to, then something's got to change, and you've got to make a choice. At the end of the day, it's to make a decision. So the word decide actually means to cut. So what are you cutting out that doesn't serve you? What are you doing that doesn't serve you? And kind of, that if you stop to think about that. We all know what we're doing or not doing that's not helping. And then I say is like, stop doing one tiny thing that's not serving you, just one thing, and start doing one tiny thing that is going to help you
instead.
So it's not try and do this massive thing, I've got to do this and I've got to do this, and like overwhelm yourself, because that means we'll just go back into procrastination, that fight, flight or freeze. And just go, right, what's the tiny, I call it +1, -1. One little thing that you can start doing, one little thing that you can stop. Once you've got that nailed in, then do another +1, -1. The compound interest of that is absolutely massive over a year.
Absolutely. On that bombshell, thank you very much, Toni, for joining me in Routine is Revenue in episode 50, this celebratory episode. I'm really pleased that you've been my guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I've loved it.
If this conversation made you think, please subscribe, leave a comment and listen again. If you would like more information on the topic or my guest, all information are in the show notes. Build routines, bank results.